Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you guys doing today? Today we're going to be looking at measuring populations, and we looked at populations a little bit yesterday. We looked at how populations were distributed and how those populations change in size. Now, if you remember, there were three different types of distribution in populations. We had clumping, and those were in types of animals that typically hung out in family groups. Primates, different primates like gorillas, orangutans, humans, but there's also other organisms like lions and different types of fish that live in groups of families. Then they've adapted to live in those groups because the family group helps them to survive, whether it's escaping predators or catching prey. It's a great adaptation. We also learned a little bit about random distribution, where you have organisms that move throughout a landscape and they don't really have a set territory. For instance, spiders, when they hatch from their egg sac, they put out a bit of spider silk and they get blown by the wind, and wherever they land, they typically create their own nest. Depending on what type of spider it is, they'll spin a web, or if they don't, like a wolf spider or a trapdoor spider, they'll, create whatever type of nest that it is that they use. Some spiders, they don't even have nests. They just, they wander and they hunt throughout your backyard or the woods. And then, of course, there's a type of distribution that we see in territorial animals, like tigers. And so tigers or cheetahs or other animals, other predators, solitary predators, they'll have a territory that they'll mark and they'll hunt within that. And so we'll see like different territories within a single landscape that have solitary animals living there. And so they're actually distributed evenly throughout the landscape. And so that's our last one, even distribution. But today we're going to be talking and learning about how we measure populations. And we're going to introduce that by looking at a decline in krill populations. So go to our Canvas page in Files. Go to our Canvas page in Files and go to this week. It's the week of September the 3rd through the 6th, and you can read this article here in Canvas, or you can actually just download it if you'd like to do that. All right, I'm going to give you about 7 minutes to do that, and we'll meet back very shortly. All right. What happened in that article? What was it about? A population of krill decreasing. Yes, it was, Cody. What were some of the reasons that the population of krill was decreasing? Here, actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and do a poll. Here we go. So what is causing the population of krill to decline? Is it climate change? Is it over-harvesting? Is it ocean cooling? Or is it that there are too many penguins being selfish and they are eating all the krill? Definitely the last one. Someone wrote that, and I can see who that is. All right, 10 more seconds, guys. Braden, Emma, Zachary, Billie Jean, Michael, Danielle, Moreland, Kosnatu, and Ty. Emma M. Emma without an H. I see yours. All right, guys, let's check it out. Let's end this poll. All right, so let's pull that up here. So it seemed like, wow, 7 people didn't answer. 8th period, that's shocking to me. But it seemed like we had 11 people say that climate change was the main reason. And we had over-harvesting by humans was also another main reason. So it seems like there was a split between those. Someone thought it was ocean cooling. Someone else thought that it was that penguins were being selfish and eating all their krill. Well, the last one, D, that's not it at all. Penguins and other animals typically aren't selfish. They just don't show that characteristics. They don't show gluttony, right? They eat until they're full, or they eat, in this case, penguins, they eat, and that's how they transport their food back to their children, right? So they'll, eat a whole bunch of krill or fish or whatever it is they're eating, and they'll swim back to their nest and, puke that out into their baby's mouth, right? Regurgitation. It's a thing. But it helps the digestion for the fish, sorry, not the fish, but it helps the digestion of the fish for those baby penguins. But I really like how there was kind of a split between climate change and over-harvesting, because in fact, both of those are the correct answers. Both of those are the correct answers, right? Climate change is increasing the temperature of water, which is increasing the melting of the polar ice caps, which is causing something to happen that affects the krill, and we'll get to that in a moment. But there's also over-harvesting of by humans. Krill are used in a lot of things, and over the past 50 years, the population of krill has declined by how much? By how much percent? Awesome. Abigail says 80. Cody says 80. Does anyone agree or disagree? Elliot says 80. You guys agree? Does anyone disagree? Is it less? Is it more? You agree. Okay. 40%. Okay. So Bradley thinks it's 40. Bradley, I know you spent a little bit extra time getting to the article. It is actually 80%. 80% of the population of krill have died off in the past 50 years. And that's because of climate change and over-harvesting. But let's investigate a little bit as to why global climate change is decreasing the krill population. So we got another poll for you right here. How is climate change affecting the decrease of this krill population? Is it because krill like to lay their eggs on the ice sheets? Is it because krill hide in pockets of ice, and without the ice pockets, they are easier to find and eat by predators? Is it because krill's food source, which is algae, grow on ice, and without the ice, there's nowhere for the algae to grow? Or is it D, with less ice, krill get sunburnt and die? Which one is it? I'll give you about 10 more seconds to answer that. You can just guess, that's fine. That's okay. I understand we have issues with our connections. Terry, don't worry about that. All right, it seems like we have a consensus, but only 16 people have answered. That means 8 of you have not answered. 33% of our class has not answered. And I know some people are lagging out. Braden, Zachary, Billy, Maya, Alexandra, Morland Kosnatu, Ty, same people as last time, not answering. All right, guys. Maybe you're working on something else. Maybe you're not paying attention. Perhaps you're working through the modules, but hopefully you'll watch this video. They don't want to get called on? Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. All right. So let's end this. Oh, we got someone else. Awesome. And it's okay if you're wrong, guys. That's fine. There's no shame in being wrong. All right. All right. So, I know this is kind of difficult to see, but we had about 28% of you said that krill lay their eggs on ice sheets. And in fact, krill do not lay their eggs on ice sheets. If you had an egg and if it was sitting on ice, what's going to happen to it? Well, it'll probably freeze, and the organisms living in it would die. Yeah. Do krill hide in pockets in the ice? No, no. Krill, they create these giant swarms, right? They're kind of pushed along by the ocean currents, and they kind of group up. And they're able to swim a little bit, but they're typically pushed in by the currents. And they don't hop out of the water. They don't get into little ice pockets. They actually need to stay in the water at all times because they breathe through their gills. It's definitely not D. Krill do not get sunburnt and die. Water actually disperses a lot of that sunlight. And so that sunlight in the water is not nearly as intense as it is if you're out of the water. If you've ever been on a boat, you get sunburned a lot easily, and that's because the UV rays are reflected off of the water and back up at you. So you're getting like this double, triple sort of dose of UV light. And that's why we get sunburnt when we're next to the water, but not necessarily in the water. So the answer is, of course, C. Krill's food, which is algae, it grows on the ice. And without ice, well, there's just nowhere for the algae to grow. And we typically see the algae bloom in the springtime when there is some melt in the ice and snow, and there's a lot more sunlight to feed them. But if all that ice melts off, which is what's been happening, then there's not as much room, there's not as much area for these plants, algae, to grow. And so if there's not room for them to grow, well, then there's just not going to be as much of them, right? They're competing for that very small bit of land where they can grow, the ice. It's not land. Just like when we see competition in other species, if you're competing for something, if there's less land, there's just not going to be enough land or resources for a large population. Yeah, they're competing for different turf. All right, any questions of this about this, guys? No? The Great Turf War? All right, one more question for you guys. What do you think the implications of this great die-off of krill might have for the fishing industry? Like the fishing industry, the salmon fishing industry, or the tuna fishing industry, right? Who likes sushi? I love raw tuna fish. It's delicious. It's phenomenal. Who likes tuna fish sandwiches? You don't like seafood? You know, I really don't like seafood if it's fishy. If it's fresh, though, if you have fresh seafood, it doesn't taste fishy, and it is phenomenal. You don't really get that here a lot in America. A lot of fish are farmed. Fresh salmon, yeah, delicious. All right, so quickly, let's bring it back. What's going to happen to our fisheries, like our salmon fisheries or our tuna fisheries, if these krill die off? What do you think will happen to them? Bradley says they'll, well, okay, so you're saying the salmon populations and the tuna populations will die. Why is that? Why do you say that? Or why does Bradley say that? There's no more food. That's their food. They eat krill? That's a great question. Who knows where tuna are on top of that trophic pyramid? Oh, Elliot, it's part of their food web? Yeah. Tuna are right at the top of a trophic pyramid, at the top of a food web. They eat other fish, and they also eat zooplankton. They eat pretty much anything that they can get. And when you have the organisms, here, I'll go ahead and do a screen share with you here. When you have the organisms, it's zooplankton, because that's what krill are. They're these zooplankton down right here. We have different type of organisms that eat it. We have, predatory fish that eat it. We also have, micronecton, which is another type of plankton, a living type of plankton. There's zooplankton and there's phytoplankton, but these are an animal plankton that eat zooplankton or mesozooplankton. And then those get consumed by these predatory fish. They also get consumed by tuna, and they also get consumed by a marlin. Well, marlin, if the marlin population dies, then the tuna fish are just stuck eating this micronecton and the predatory fish. If the predatory fish population dies because there's no zooplankton, then the tuna fish are just eating these micronecton. And if the micronecton can't eat any more zooplankton because the zooplankton is gone, they're going to get stuck eating these phytoplankton. And so when we see a collapse in one species, like this krill, which, by the way, is the most abundant species on the earth, there's more krill than almost half the human population, then all these other species are going to get affected by it negatively, right? If there's a collapse right here, then the fish that eat the krill are going to start eating other things. And so those populations will die because of overfishing. And then soon the predatory fish will die and the tuna fish will die. And it's just this whole collapse. I think Elliot said it correctly, right? There's too much competition. And Bradley said the ecosystem will crash because it's all kind of part of this food web, like Elliot was saying. Remember, let's say food web. Food web is much better description of it as opposed to a chain. Remember, a chain is just one link after another. But in that picture that we saw, it's kind of this whole web, right? It's not just a single link through. Phytoplankton get eaten by two different things, and it just kind of splits off and branches more like a spider's web than an actual chain. All right, class, we're coming up towards the end of class. I'm going to give you the rest of class time to work on our modules for today, okay? So go ahead and head to Canvas and check out our Measuring Populations modules. Work on the vocabulary and the direct instruction, okay? The last 5 minutes of class, we'll come back and we'll talk about kind of what we've learned today so far. And then I'll talk about our homework for tonight, just finishing up the modules and our quiz. Any questions? I'll go ahead and I'll leave this checklist up here for you guys to refer back to if you need to, all right? All right, I'll let you get to it, guys. If you have any questions, just send me a personal message. Unfortunately, class is over. We don't have time to go into this checkup. But I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Everyone should finish the vocabulary and the direct instruction. You have more than a week to do this quiz. I suggest maybe doing it tomorrow, getting a good night's rest, reviewing some of the modules from this week, and taking the quiz tomorrow. Have a great weekend. There are a few people that please don't leave yet. There are a few people I need to talk to about grades. So hang around. I'm going to go ahead